So today we got a 2003 Nissan Altima with a 3.5 V6. We're going to be putting valve cover gaskets, spark plugs, and a cam sensor in it. And a lot of these cars don't get the rear spark plugs changed out back here because the intake goes over the valve cover. And a lot of people, they don't feel that they are able to do something like that. So we're going to go through this and see what it's going to take to get that done. First thing is to take this cover off. These are 5mm, and someone's already been here. This has probably been off quite a few. This car's got over 200,000 miles. This thing's probably been off 100 times, and people's tried to take it off with the wrong size Allen. So hopefully we're going to be able to zip these off without too much trouble. So of course, first thing we're going to do is get this intake out of the way. As you can see, you've got various things hooked to it. Looks like we may be able to just keep all this stuff hooked up. Disconnect the air box. Came loose from the valve cover, so that's what we're going to go with. Put that back out. That wasn't even hooked up. And what my plan is just lay this off to the side if I can. There's just a spring clamp back here I'm taking off. On a vacuum hose. I'm going to wait till I get the intake up a little bit before I worry about that. A lot of these lines are cracked, or at least dry. $12mm on the intake bolts. You can see the intake's already loose. There's only a couple nuts and 3 bolts. Like I say, this car's got over 200,000 miles on it, so everything's going to be brittle. And probably more of a pain in the butt than what it should be. But you got to do what you got to do, right? Pulling another vacuum hose off. Okay, that one came off okay. There's one more hose underneath here that looks like it's kind of preventing me from tilting this thing up. All right. How much of that is in your way? Take this air reservoir off. So that hopefully not a whole lot of that's in your way. Now before you start this job, it'd probably be a good idea. I did get new intake gasket. You can probably reuse the old one. Most of the time they're in pretty decent shape. So at this point, what you want to do just take a towel or something, lay over the tell you what, to keep that out of my way, I'm just going to put paper towels down here. And this just so you don't drop nuts and bolts or debris down into the engine. Just don't forget to take them out. Popping the coils out. Make sure they're dry. If you pull one of these out and it's full of oil, then the spark plug tube is leaking. And I don't know on this engine, some of them, they have replaceable seal tubes, some of them don't. Like that one right there. See how much oil came out with that one? That right there means that the seal tube, the spark plug tube seal, is bad. Alright, I kind of changed the camera location. Hopefully this is a better angle. So let's see. I think the next thing I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and pull this valve cover off on this side first, and then I'll go ahead and get that one off. That's what I'm thinking. So there's a, looks like a O2 sensor connector here. Just pops off. A couple clips right here for this harness. You squeeze them with a pair of pliers and put a little bit of pressure on them at the same time. You can pop them loose. And there's a hose that runs from one valve cover to the other. And it looks like this hose has actually been replaced. That's actually, looks like it's just fuel line, which is fine, but it's making it a little bit difficult. For me to get it off. And I'll probably just leave it attached to this one unless it pops off. 10 millimeter, looks like around the valve cover. Looks like this little tab broke off. Just goes to show you how brittle this stuff is. Now, since these valve covers are leaking, at least this one, I think that's under number 1, which is this one right here. If you can see that, it's leaking around the spark plug tube, and these particular valve covers do not have individual seals that you can pop in the valve cover. You have to literally replace the entire valve cover. So I'm going to call the customer and tell her about that and see if she wants me to order some valve covers. And then we're going to go from there. Okay, so I got the valve covers in. This is about 3 days later. If you do this job, you may want to go ahead and just order valve covers, because if you got a lot of miles on your vehicle, this car's got about 210,000 miles on it, and whenever these spark plug tubes, whenever the seal around the valve cover is leaking, the spark plug cavity fills up with oil, and it'll cause misfire and stuff like that. And the seals are not replaceable like they are on a lot of cars. A lot of cars, actually, with the valve cover gasket that goes around the perimeter of the valve covers, they also send you the seals that go around the spark plug tubes. Well, this car, it's all molded into the plastic valve cover. Now, the valve covers locally at O'Reilly's or AutoZone are right at $200 each. That'd be $400 for this set of valve covers. And I'm going to put a link, because I found these valve covers on Amazon for $61 for the set. Now, the nice thing about these valve covers is they come with the gaskets too. The gaskets locally are about $20 to $25. So, I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. Go ahead and order your valve covers with gaskets. Obviously, you see the new rubber seals right here for the spark plug tube. So you're all set. You're all good to go with a new set of valve covers. That's going to include your gasket, your spark plug tube seals, and you're good to go. And you don't have to worry about cleaning up the old nasty valve covers. You know, these are all brand new, shiny, clean. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, that you can spend $61 on Amazon for a brand new set that includes gaskets, and be done. Be done with, worrying about if your spark plug tube seals are leaking or not, bam, you're good to go. Because the problem is that you're not going to know until the intake is off whether the aft spark plug tube seals are leaking. It's easy enough to pull your coils out of the front here and look down there and see that there's no oil, but the back ones, you're going to have to pull the intake off. And if you're not able to keep the car down like I was able to keep the car down, for however long I needed it. But if you drive your car and you're needing to have it back up and running, you're going to have to put the intake back on, which isn't that big of a deal. I mean, that would be a doable deal. Put the intake back on, order your valve covers until they came in and all that. But hey, for 61 bucks, why not just go ahead and order valve covers? That way you've got them whenever you're doing the job, and you get it all done, and you're good. Anyway, we're going to press on with this job. So let me get all set up here. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're clean around the perimeter of the valve cover, where the valve cover mates. Now the gaskets came off real nice on this, so I mean there's not going to be any gasket really to worry about. Now they recommend right here in the corners where the front cover meets up to the head, they recommend a little RTV right there. You can see where the old RTV is. So I'm going to put just a little dab right there on that aft one while I make sure your valve cover's all pressed in. All right. All right, so all the bolts are started. Now the nice thing about these are shouldered bolts, meaning that they shank out on this shoulder, and it puts the exact amount of tension or compression on the gasket. So you really, it's kind of tough to over tighten them. These were way over tightened whenever I took them off. They shouldn't have been as tight as they was, but the valve covers were leaking. Someone must have got in there and thought that they could tighten them up and make it better, but they didn't. Okay. So I think that's it until we change the plugs. I've still got to change the plugs on that side. So let me get this other valve cover on. Just a little dab of RTV right there in the corners. Good to do a crisscross pattern to kind of suck it up evenly. Like I say, these things shoulder out, so you're not gonna really be able to squeeze the gasket too much. Once that shoulders, it puts the right amount of pressure on it. Okay, the valve covers are on. There's a hose that goes from this point to this point. It's just a breather hose. And I'm going to replace that hose. And I've still got to go to the parts house to get that. So 1/2-inch hose should work for that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is change the valve covers. Before I forget, if you remember this hose here, I had to kind of split it. So I'm going to go ahead. I think there's enough to where it'll reach, but I'm going to cut this part here off this bad part and hope it reaches. If it doesn't reach, I'll replace that one too. Now this was the coil that was saturated with oil. And oil does cause issues with these boots sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and put this coil up front. That way, if it does end up becoming an issue, then won't have to pull the intake off. Now this one here also had oil on it. So I'm going to put it up front. That way, same thing. If there's an issue, then it'll be easy to get off. Okay. Okay, other than this breather hose, we're good to go there, and I think I'll be able to get to that with this intake on. Let me just check that. That intake is bolted up. So let me go ahead. I'm gonna get this intake bolted up because I can get that hose with it on. Always a good idea to double check, make sure you don't see any nuts or bolts down in the engine. So when I went to order the gaskets, this gasket set right here, which has got both your lower intake gaskets, which are these, and your upper intake gasket, which is this, which is the only one that we need. It was actually cheaper than what they was selling just the one gasket here for that I needed. Kind of crazy the way that works out. Let's see, is that the way that goes? Looks like it. Okay, so everything over there is plugged in. Yeah, it'll be just a little bit more difficult, but not much to get that hose on. No big deal. Okay, what do we need here? And of course I forgot where I put that bolt. right there, didn't I? Okay. A couple hoses back here in the back. Let me show you those. Kind of something me getting them off, I think. Hopefully you can see those. So we got one right here, goes on the back of the intake. Actually, I mean, both of them actually go on the back of the intake, but... And yeah, there's plenty of room for this one. Of course, it's already cracking. There we go. Now, there was a bracket bolted on the back of this intake at some point, but it's off and it's taken a set away from where the hole is, and I don't have the bolt for it. So it doesn't look like it's going to cause a problem, so I'm just going to leave it exactly the way it was when it came in. But other than that, it should be... I don't remember any connectors back there. Okay, so other than this hose right here, let me show you. The hose, I don't know if you can see it, hooks up right there. And it goes over to this other valve cover gasket right there, or valve cover rather. So I'm gonna run up to the auto parts store, get that hose, and this job will be done. I'm gonna put the air box back on. And when it came in, this wasn't even tight, but this doesn't have a mass airflow sensor. Actually, it does have a mass airflow sensor. Sure does. With this not being tight at this end, once the air that went past the mass airflow sensor calculated the cubic feet per minute, if it was sucking in any air around here, it would be throwing the mixture off. So that's probably going to make the car run better right there. So yeah, I'm going to get that all hooked up. I don't know if you guys care to see that or not, but and you got a hose right here on your valve cover. But yeah, it's very important. Hold on, there's oil all over my handle. Very important that everything from the mass airflow to the engine is tight and not leaking, because it'll play hell with the mixture. Not sure what goes there, but nothing was attached to it when it came in, so I guess it stays like it is. And that's it. Other than the vent hose, this thing's done. I'm going to start it up just to see how it runs. And hopefully that vent hose over there doesn't play too much hell with us. The reason I kind of cranked it over in short bursts like that is because if there was any oil that ran down into the cylinders, I didn't want it to hydraulically lock it. So I was hoping that if that was going to be a problem, that it would give it a little bit of time to evacuate itself out of there. So that's all there is to that. Hopefully that takes care of the valve cover leaks that it had. Hopefully it runs better. And that's it. Get some airflow. Hey, I also want to tell you about these. These are actually safety glasses, but they're also magnifiers. So these things are great. They look like crap. You definitely don't look good in them, but they do protect your eyes, and you'll be able to see stuff better up close. My eyes aren't what they used to be, and I need reading glasses whenever I read. And a lot of times whenever I'm up close doing stuff, it's tough for me to see stuff. So I bought these. I've had these for about 3 or 4 years now. And they're absolutely great whenever it comes to being able to, you know, see stuff like you need to. And like I say, they are safety glasses. So whenever you're grinding or doing anything like that, it will protect your eyes. I'll put a link to these. I think I got these off Amazon, so I'll put a link to them. So yeah, get you a couple pair of these. They're relatively cheap, and you'll be glad you did. Anyway, that's about it for this. Like I say, got one hose. I've got to go up to the parts store to get that one hose that goes from valve cover to valve cover, and then put this cover here back on, and we're going to be done with this. You guys take care.